before entering into OOP in Python, we'll just take some quick review about what is procedure-oriented programming and what is object-oriented programming. I'm sure you have some basic idea either in C++ or in Java. Okay, but just to take quick review about it, we'll quickly take the differences between procedure-oriented, object-oriented, and then how object-oriented programming is done in Python. Okay, what all concepts are there of OOP in Python, all in detail we have to learn. First, we'll just discuss about procedure-oriented programming. Okay, so many languages are there which are procedure-oriented. Procedures means subtask, or in some languages they are called functions, as like in C, or in some languages like Pascal and all, they call subroutine, subprogram, or a sub-function, okay, or subtask, anything you can call. So in case of procedure-oriented programming, the emphasis is on procedures. That is, any big problem, whatever problem you want to solve, that problem is subdivided into for that task. Okay, these tasks, if they want to share some data, so there is only one option, you have to keep it global, which is the drawback of procedure. Is divided, or the problem is splitted into sub problems. Okay, and then for each sub problem we write basic functions. Okay, and then there can be many functions which are related and they have to share some data between them. So they share the data by keeping that data global. Okay, and that is what drawback. By keeping global, the data is freely flowing in the program. And now those functions which are unrelated, okay, they also will be able to access that data. So importance to the data is given less, and importance to the procedure or functions are given more. Okay, so in short, just to recall, so it is dividing the problem into subtask. Okay, like if the task is to calculate a pay slip of an employee, you will divide it into subtasks. Like one task will be to accept the data, one will be to do calculation, third will be to display output, the pay slip in proper formatted way. So the main problem was generate pay slip. We divided into three subtasks: accept the data, do calculation, do printing. But now in this, there can be some information which is to be shared. So obviously you have to keep global. Okay. So pictorially I have shown here that here the problem is divided into subtasks, and that each subtask we call it as functions. Now that every subtask can have their own data also, that is called local data. Okay? So they will have their own local data, but these subtasks want some data to be shared. So it is kept global. Okay? But now it's possible that some are related functions, so they have their global data. These related functions have their related data. But there is no means of doing compartments. Like these three are one group, these two are one group. Then this group data cannot be shared by this group. Such provision is not there. You have to keep global only. So now this data which is accessible here is accessible here also. So no security to data. So data to be shared by related functions is kept global. And as it is kept global, importance to the data is less. More importance is given to function and less to data. Get it? Importance less to data means there is no data abstraction. Data abstraction means you are getting. It should be accessible only to those related functions. It should not be visible or accessible to the outside world other than those related functions. Getting? So that is not possible. And real world mapping, that is whatever you see in real world, living things, non-living things, okay, visible things, invisible things, all that, if you want to put in a programming world, the mapping is less. You can do, but not to that extent. Okay. So therefore, the next paradigm introduced. These are all different programming methodologies. Or you can call it as they are different approaches of writing program. Paradigms we call it as. So there is another programming paradigm called object-oriented programming. Here, everything is in terms of classes and objects. Okay, means here the emphasis is on classes object, whereas in POP emphasis is on procedures. Getting? Now you may say, what is a class? What is object? We are coming to it. We'll discuss it properly in detail in the next slide. So as I said, here the importance is given to classes. Now, in short, you can say like a class is a group of related functions and their related data. Means the data is global only to those related functions. It is not accessible to the other group of functions. Okay. So here you can say like in class, there is encapsulation of related functions and the data which is to be shared between them. And then it will act as a template or it will act as a data type. And then you'll create a copy of it, and that copies are called objects. Okay. So in short, I have told you. So it represents problem in terms of classes and object. Then in these classes, what is done? Your functions and your data, that is the algorithms in which you are doing manipulation to this data. So those algorithms are in your function, and all the functions want to share some data. So that data and that related functions are packed into one entity called classes. And once you create a class, then you can create copies of it called objects. Getting? So here I have shown. Now in this one compartment or in one capsule, that is what it's called, encapsulation. In this capsule, only those functions are there which are related. Here, the related functions, the related function. And here, the data which is to be shared by all this. So it looks like global, but it is global only to this related function. Means it is accessible only within this capsule. Correct? And then they interact with each other by these call to functions. Okay? So that we have seen it indirectly many times in our Python programming also. So here the main concept is encapsulate related functions, their related data into an entity called class, and then you create copies of that class called object, and then these objects will interact with each other through message passing. Okay? And here they say that whatever you see in the real world, you can map it very easily in terms of programming. So in short, what I want to say is that real world mapping, all entities which we see in real world, okay, student, employee, person, anything, okay, a doctor, a teacher, whoever you see, that are living things, unliving things like bill, receipt, then you take animals, cat, dog, whatever you see in real world, you can put it very easily in object oriented. Get it? So now what we are supposed to see that how this both paradigms are there in Python, okay, which we have seen in the first session, that is in first chapter, features of Python. And in that we have mentioned that Python is multi-paradigm language. That is, it supports different programming methodologies. So you can use procedure-oriented methodology also. That is by writing your own functions, def keyword, write functions and then call your function. Or you can write your own classes, then create copies of it, and then those objects will interact with each other. Okay. So in short, what I wanted to say is Python supports both the programming paradigms. That is, in Python, you can do procedure-oriented code also, object-oriented. Getting? Then next thing, which I am repeating so many times again from the first program, that in Python, everything is a object. Getting? And therefore, sometimes it's called as true object oriented or pure object oriented language. Okay. So in Python, everything is object, unlike other OOP languages. Okay. Like in C or in Java, primitives are not object. Primitive data types like int, float, char, they are not objects. You understanding? Now, in Java, there is a debate because in Java, there are something called wrapper classes. And in that wrapper class, you can wrap the primitive type and you can make it as an object. Okay. But in Python, inbuilt only everything is a object. Get it? Meaning, in short, just to tell you, like if I have created I equal to 10, okay, we feel as if 10 is assigned to I, but actually there is an object of class int created, okay, and in that the 10 is stored. In that object, the 10 is encapsulated, and the reference of that object is coming in I. You understanding what I'm saying? What happens is a object gets created of class integer. Okay. In that, what gets encapsulated? Your value 10. And the reference of this object is recorded in the symbol table. And who is collecting that reference? I. You understanding? So that is in Python, everything is object. And that you can justify also by printing its type. Isn't it? We have seen it so many times. If I write over here, it displays class int. Doesn't it prove that it is also a object? And can I explicitly write like this? So here also what is happening? An object of class int is getting created. Its constructor is getting called. Okay, constructor to which 10 is passed, and then that object reference is collected in I. Okay, ultimately same thing. Okay, now this is not only for int, but in Python, everything is an object. Python says functions are also object. I'll try to prove it. Okay, see, if I write def f, okay, and then I'm writing print, but like in C or in C++, functions, this name won't be an object. We'll be calling it as a pointer, which holds the address of that function. Here, they treat everything as a object. Okay, like here I've created a function. Okay, we call that function, no doubt. But if I try to print the type of f, that is this f, okay, so it will be also an object of some class. Get it? And it is an object of class function. See, class function. I mean, this is also internally getting converted into a object. And it is an object of class function. Means there is a class with the name function. Okay. So what I am trying to insist that is clear to you, that in Python, everything is a object. Okay. Though you can write a procedure oriented code by writing functions, which we have done it in one chapter. We were writing our own functions and then we were calling the functions. Or you can write your program in terms of classes. Means you can create your own capsule in which you'll put related functions, related data, and then you'll create copy of that capsule called object and then interact with those objects. Get it? So that methodology is also allowed and procedural. Then, as I said, everything in Python is object. Okay, hear carefully. Yeah? You're hearing carefully, I hope. Okay, so though we call this int and str as a basic type, but Python internally treats them also as object, and that we have justified many times, isn't it? Like if I've written num equal to 20, and then I'm trying to print type of num, doesn't it print class int? Yes. If I've created a string and then I'm trying to print the type of this string, it prints class str. This itself justifies that these variables are implicitly objects of their respective class. And here I showed you also pictorially in Paint. What gets created? An object of integer. In that, what gets stored? 20. And then the reference of that object is coming in num. Is it? And suppose I create a function also, right? Def f. And then I'm trying to print the type of f. This is something new which you are observing. Now, many programmers are from Java background also. Many of you are from C, C++ also. Now, some are professionals also sitting in our batch. Okay. Those who have already coding experiences. So they might be thinking like in Java or in C++, this is not the case. But in Python, you can see that function name is also implicitly a object, and it's an object of respective class. Okay. So I hope you're understanding what I mean to say. Is it? Okay, all of you? I hope you are understanding, right? Okay. Good morning to all others, those who have joined late. Okay, so I hope you understood the basic idea, that is the difference between a procedure oriented and object oriented, and how Python is a pure object oriented, and how Python supports both the methodologies of programming. And in Python, ultimately everything is a object. Is it? Let it be a function or let it be an integer or a string. Python converts everything implicitly into an object of some class. Means everyone is having its own class. Okay. Now to continue with the discussion. Okay, we'll continue with the next concept. That is two main buzzwords, you can say, or two main important terminologies of object oriented programming. You can even call them as buzzwords. Okay, right? Like you people also have your own buzzwords, isn't it? Like yo, yup, is it? So that yo and yup are your buzzwords. So likewise, object oriented programming is also having its own buzzwords, and very important in that are object, class, encapsulation, abstraction, and then other buzzwords are there like polymorphism, inheritance. Okay, so that now I won't take it. When we'll come to inheritance topic, it's a topic because entire object oriented is covered in this one chapter. So when we'll come to inheritance, what is inheritance, types of inheritance, then how to achieve polymorphism in Python, both runtime polymorphism, compile time concept, what all are facilities given in case of that polymorphism, we'll be learning. Okay, so all that terminologies will come to inheritance and polymorphism and all. At this moment, only two important terms I try to recall. One is object and another is class. Okay, so what we can call a object as, you can say in a very simple term, it is in the real world that is mapped in terms of your programming world. Okay, that simple way I'm trying to illustrate. So it's a software entity that models a real life entity. Now, real life means it can be a visible thing, it can be an invisible thing, it can be a living thing, it can be a non-living thing, anything. Okay, so very basic way I'm trying to tell. Okay, object is a software entity, that is, it's a program representation, but it's a programming representation of what? Something from the real world. Okay, and all these objects have two important things. They have their own characteristics and they have their own behavior, isn't it? This is quite heard. I'm sure at least in C++ you have heard, if you have learned that language prior. Okay, so object is having its own characteristics. You can call it as attribute, you call it as field, you call it as state, okay, or property. Very simple term, I'll call it as characteristic. And they have their own behaviors also. Getting clear? And in programming world, you'll call these characteristics as data and these behaviors as functions. Okay. Normally, object-oriented programming terminology says any function which is within a class. Okay. Though it is written using a def keyword only. But if it is inside a class, we call it as a method. And when it is outside a class, we call it as a function. But it's not like if you do in a other way, like mistakenly, if you say it is a function for a method, so it's not like a crime is done. It is just a way of speaking. Okay, good practice. The functions which are inside the class, we call them as method. Okay, so if I use word function, doesn't make any difference. Okay, because ultimately it is going to contain an algorithm, a logic in which some manipulations are done. Okay, so every object is going to have its own characteristics. Okay, and in programming world, we call that as data. Okay, and that data can be represented in your programming world in different ways, isn't it? Depending on your data. It can be simple data like int, string, float, boolean, or the data can be more complex. So you can create a data itself as a list, or the data itself can be a dictionary. Okay, so I hope you're understanding. So characteristics and behavior, and behaviors means only functions or methods you can call, and functions contain what? The logic, the algorithm. Getting it contains calculations, or it contains some logic for displaying the information. Anything it can be, and these functions do operation on data. Is it? So that way it is made. These behaviors, okay, means functions. Characteristics means data. These functions contain what? Logic to access or to manipulate this data. Getting? And which is happening in the real world also. In real world also, every object of real world is having behavior, characteristic, and the behaviors dominate characteristic. Means do our behavior manipulate our characteristic, isn't it? The behaviors are going to manipulate or change or control our characteristic, isn't it? In real world also, we say like depending on our behavior, what is decided, our characteristic is decided. Okay, means does our behavior change our characteristic? Yes. So in programming also, the functions change data. Okay, so that concept you should know. Some real world examples I have put. Okay, so always remember, like behaviors control characteristic, similarly functions control data, isn't it? Yes or no? So in real world, our behaviors are controlling our characteristics. So in similar way, functions are going to control data. Means inside this function, we are going to write code which will access that data or manipulate that data. Getting? Few examples of real world I have given, like a person is an object because that person is having its own characteristics, own behavior. Okay, then I'm taking student. Student is having its own characteristic, roll number, name, percentage, email, mobile. Then the previous year exam appeared. Whatever are the characteristics, and it will have its own behavior. Okay, then bank account. If we take account, okay, so this is a non-living thing. These were living thing, but all are from real world. Okay, account like account number, then the account holder name, the current balance in the account. Okay. Now we can use our user defined objects also. Means your custom objects also can be put into this programming world. Okay. Few to tell you, like, okay, from the real world, I have taken stack. Okay, so I see stack in the real world. That is, what are kept, plates are kept one above another, and then you access them only in a last in, first out manner. That thing you can also map in programming. We call it as user defined object. Similarly, queue or date or time, clear? Many things are there. Now, from this, few are invisible things, few are visible things, some are non living things, all. But do you observe that these all have their own characteristics and they have their own behavior? Getting clear? Like date is going to have characteristic as DD, MM, YY. And the behaviors like if you add one in it, you get a next date. Okay. Then if you take two dates and we put a subtraction, so we get the number of days between those two dates. So they are the date behavior. Something when you add in a date, you get a new date. Isn't it clear? So I hope you're understanding. Okay. And as I said, when these objects, when you try to map in your programming world, okay, it will have two parts. One, the data. That data can be elementary data also, or it can be any complex data also. Okay. The object when mapped to software representation, it consists of two parts. The first part, as I said, data, which we also call as attributes or characteristics or field or state. Okay. And can they be elementary like float or int or boolean? Okay. And can they be more complex? Yes. Okay. Like suppose the entity is person, but that person is going to have more than one phone numbers. Okay. So to store one phone number is okay, but I want to store multiple phone numbers. So I have to create a list in which I'll store the phone numbers of that person. So that data will be little complex. Okay. And these objects, when they are mapped to your software representation, they will have functions. And functions are also called as method. And inside function, there is code, the logic, calculation, or any printing work, okay, any decision making, any loops, anything can be there. So are also called method, which contain logic. And in this logic, this data is getting operated, meaning either it is getting accessed or it is getting modified. Okay, so I hope you got it. The basic idea you're getting, or many might be able to recall it. I'm sure those who have learned C++ or those who have learned Java, they are recollecting it, all these concepts. Okay. And those who haven't, for them, it's a new information. Okay. So some examples I'm taking. One example I've taken like car. Okay. We see in the real world car. Now, pictorially, I've tried to show it. Okay. You assume that car of any brand or make or model. Now, is this car going to have its own data? Yes. Okay. Now, this is my observation. You can add the data of your choice also. It depends on your study. Okay. How you have studied that object. Okay. So, I have assumed that every car is going to have a color. It's going to have brand. It's going to have speed. It's going to have number of gears. Okay. And is it also going to have some behavior? It's not a model car kept in a showcase. Okay. Model cars also look exactly like a real world car. Okay. But only the thing is they are just abstract. They are abstract means they only have an interface. They don't have anything concrete in it. No actual engine is there and no power generation is there. And it doesn't move ahead or come back. Okay. It looks like a car, but it's not a real car. Okay. So now what all behaviors does a car have? Okay. So behavior is like you accelerate a car, you press, you keep your foot on an accelerate thing, and then what happens is the car speed up. Okay, so acceleration is one behavior. Okay, changing gear, and as you change gear, the smoothness of the vehicle modify. To change gear, accelerate, put brake. Putting brake means it stop, ignite, that is start your vehicle. Clear? So these are some behaviors. And tell me, in this behavior, are these data getting accessed or manipulated? Yes. When you put brake, the speed is going to change, isn't it? When you're changing the gear, is the gear number going to modify? Okay. So as you accelerate, then also your speed is going to change, isn't it? So I hope you understood that these behaviors contain logic, and that logic is accessing or manipulating this data. Isn't it clear? Like I try to give some other user defined examples also. See here in this case. Now here also tell me, as I go on adding new values in the stack, does your top change? And is the content of this list changing? Yes. Okay. So example is clear to you. One more to take, like I have taken from animal category, that is cat. Okay. Now, is the cat also going to have some characteristic of its own? It's up to your observation again. If you're a veterinary doctor, so you'll observe a lot. Okay. You're just a common person, so your observation will be different. Is the abstraction level going to change? Like I'm just a common man. Okay. So I'm not knowing many more details about that car, about that cat. But if I'm a veterinary doctor, so the internals of that cat is completely known to that person. Okay. So depending on that. So I have done the observation like cat is having color, its height, its weight. Then does cat also have some behavior? A cat sleep, it snores, it jumps, it runs, isn't it? So few I have put. And are these behaviors of cat going to manipulate the data or access the data? Yes. When the the cat is snoring. Okay. So you can see the stomach is going in and out, in and out. Okay. Or when it is about to run or it is about to jump, it makes its backbone, it makes it high. So in that case, the height is changing. Isn't it clear? So that's what I said. Okay. So these behaviors are going to change these characteristics or they are going to modify the characteristic. Okay. Now one more to give. I'm sure you are tired with these examples. Okay. You have so many examples to see in the surrounding. One more I have given. That is example of balloon. Okay. Now, is this balloon also going to have its own characteristic? Yes. The color of the balloon, the diameter of the balloon, the shape of the balloon, whether it's a round balloon or a heart-shaped balloon. Okay. Then the type of the balloon means what type of air is filled in. When a natural air is filled or hydrogen is filled, so accordingly the type is changing. So they all are characteristics, isn't it? So color, shape, diameter, type, they all are characteristics of the balloon. And does balloon have behavior also? Yes. It expands as you go on filling the air in it. Does it expand? Yes. If I put a pin on it, it bursts and it will again deflate. It will become again normal. And when it deflates, does it create a sound also? Yes. So all those are expand, deflate, burst, make noise, all are behaviors of balloon. And do these all behaviors modify this characteristic? Yes. When it is expanding, that is you're filling the air in it, is the diameter changing? Yes. Okay. When it bursts, we put a pin on it, again the diameter gets reduced to 0. Sometimes the color may also change. Initially it is dark red, but as it expands, the color becomes lighter. Okay. So what I wanted to conclude is that these functions are manipulating these data. Okay. Like in real world, our behaviors access or control our characteristic. Okay. Like our characteristics are controlled by our behavior. So in coding also, these data members are accessed and manipulated by these functions. Okay. So I hope to wind up with, you have understood the concept of object. Okay. So to in crux, in one line, if I want to tell, the object is a real world entity which is mapped in terms of software entity. It is having its own characteristic, which we call in programming as data. It's having its own behavior, which in programming we call it as function. Isn't it clear? And that function contains logic which will access or manipulate data. Right? Like in real world, our behaviors control our characteristics. So in programming, functions control data. Okay, I hope the examples are clear to you. Now we'll move to the next important term, that is class. It is also a buzzword of OOP. Is it? Right? Now what is a class? Right? So in very simple definition, I can say class is a group of similar objects. Means those objects which share similar characteristics and similar behavior. Okay, like all cats. So let the cat name be Money or let the cat name be Kitty, whatever. But the Kitty or Money, they both are cat because they are sharing characteristics and behavior. The behaviors are same. Both snore, both sleep, both jump, both run. Okay, both have similar characteristic. They have color, they have height, they have weight. The values may differ. You understanding? And it has to. In real world also, two entities, though they are of similar category, but they have their values different to uniquely identify themselves. Like two students are having characteristics same, but the values will be different to differentiate them. Isn't it clear? So class is a group or collection of objects of same type. That is, all the objects who share similar characteristic and similar behavior are grouped into one entity called class. Okay, I hope you are understanding. Now this is just to understand the concept of class. Okay, now in programming world, what is a class? Okay, so you can say in programming world, class is like a template, or it's like a blueprint, or it's a design, okay, for creating objects. Okay, so I can say like that, the design is the class and the production of that design is object. Means once the design is done, we have to do production of it. Like for example, an automobile design engineer, he has designed an entire car, how the car will look, how many seater it will be, everything, where the engine position will be, number of gears, the gearbox design, everything is done. Now that design is given to the production people. And are production people going to make hundreds of cars from that same design? Yes. So what hundreds of cars are coming on the road are objects, because they all are sharing similar characteristics. But to make that cars, the blueprint which was used, the design which was used, that is class. Okay. So what we can say a class as, you can say class is a template. Class is a blueprint, or you can say class is a design, and the objects are copies of that design. Okay, and always objects take space in the memory. Okay, so who is actually going to take space in your programming world? Objects. Class is not taking space. The copies of that class, the duplicate copies of that class take space, and the copies of that class are called as objects. They are also called as instances, and the process of creating that instances is called as instantiation. Okay, so always remember, what is a class? It's a template. Example I'll tell you, like if you go in bakery, and in bakery if you see there is one complete tray full of same type cakes, all are of heart-shaped cakes. So that complete tray full of cakes are objects. But to make that cake, they have used one aluminium mold, which was of that heart shape. So that mold which they have used to make the cake is a class. And the cakes, that is tray full of cakes, which are made from that mold, are objects. You understanding? Clear? So like if a civil engineer is there, so he'll make a blueprint or a design of a 3 BHK flat, where a hall will be, where kitchen will be, everything he has designed. And then this construction people will create many 3 BHK flats of that same design. So like if hundreds of 3 BHK flats are created, they are objects. But to create that flat, the design which was used is class. So in simple terms, does the class tell the nature or the form or the characteristics and behaviors of your object? What will be the behavior and characteristic of your object is told by class. Okay. And to wind up, in last step, I'll tell you, class acts like a data type, and objects act like a variable of that data type. You understanding what I want to say? Okay. So when I create I equal to 10, so remember, I is an object. Okay. But it is an object of which type? Integer. So int is the class, and I is the object of that int class. Make it clear what I want to say. Okay. When I say money and kitty, so they are two objects, but both are copies of cat. So cat is class. Okay. So in programming world, we can call class as a data type. Analogy if you do, so class is a data type, and variables of that data type are objects. Okay. So quickly we'll see this. So collection of objects of similar type is class. Okay, all of you, I'm sure you are hearing it. It is quite theoretical concept, but you need to make these concepts clear to proceed with the programming part of Python. Okay, so collection of objects is called as class. Or you can say set of objects of same characteristics and same behavior. Means those objects which share similar characteristics, similar behavior are grouped into class. Okay. Then it is describing the nature or the form. Like as I said, that aluminium heart-shaped mold is going to tell how the cake will look. Is it? Okay. The civil engineer has made a blueprint of a 3 BHK flat. So you at least get an idea where, what all things will be there in that complete flat. Okay. So it is describing nature or form of the object. It acts as a blueprint or it acts as a template. Okay. You can consider like a plastic stencil, which we used to use in our school days, a plastic stencil in which many shapes were there, circle, square, triangle. And then we used to keep that stencil on a card sheet. Okay. And do the marking. And then we used to cut that card sheet by scissors. So from that card sheet, I got many circles. But to make that circle, I used that stencil. Okay. So user-defined data type consisting of data and functions. Okay. So as I said, class is a user-defined data type, and the variables of that data type are objects. Okay. You can say copies or instance of it are object. And to programming world, if you relate, class is analogous to data type, and the variables of that data type are called objects. Okay, I hope you understood all this concept. And who takes memory? Object. Template doesn't take memory. Okay, so class doesn't take memory. The copy of that class takes memory. Okay, just to relate it, like this is do. Okay, do means you're understanding in our English Hindi, gunawa atta, clear? That is which mom prepares before making roti, chapati. Okay, so that dough is spread. Okay, it is spread, and then we have this mold, and that mold I press on it. Commonly, when a puri is done at home, isn't it? In May, Amras Puri, that was programmed continuously. Okay, so a dough is spread, then that round bati is pressed on that dough, and you get lot of puris, isn't it? The same way, this mold is pressed on it. Then we pick this and keep it aside. Again, we pick this and keep it aside. So now all these things which we have got, they are object, and they all are of similar characteristic, similar behavior, and therefore they all are grouped into one class. Okay, so I hope you got it. This mold is the class, and using that mold, these all 4 copies which I've got, they are objects. Okay, many to give. This is so I hope you got it. And one last important terminology, other terminologies like polymorphism and about inheritance, I'll talk when we'll come to that topic. Okay. Now, in short, I just want to tell you about what is encapsulation. So, encapsulation is process of creating class. The mechanism of making class is encapsulation, because in that you're encapsulating, means you're packing or you're bundling related data and related functions. So all those which are related to car only, the functions which are related to car and the data which is related to car, that both things are put into one entity, and then that entity we call it as car, and then we create copies of it. Okay, so what is encapsulation? I said the process of binding related data, related functions into one single unit. Okay, we call it as class, and that process of that binding or the process of making class is called encapsulation. And in this only we are trying to achieve abstraction also, like the data which is put into that class is accessible only to these functions. It is not accessible outside world. Okay, so therefore we say the data is hidden, and the logic also inside this function is hidden. Why? Because the other people who are going to use your class, they are just going to create object and invoke function. They don't know what algorithm is written inside that function. Getting? Means in short, the implementation details or some storage details are kept hidden from the outside world, and that is called abstraction. Okay, so I hope till here it is clear to you, all of you. Sure. So that we'll continue with the main programming part. Now we'll enter a lot of theoretical concept. I'm sure you got a basic idea about it. Okay, and some of them might have recalled something which they have learned in C++ or in Java. Okay, many, I'm sure many, because many of you have studied C++ and all. Okay, so a lot of recall took place, isn't it? Like all these concepts of what is a class, what is an object. So I hope that part is clear to you. Now we'll try to move into object-oriented programming in Python. Means how Python supports OOP. Okay, so now we'll see how to create a class in Python. Like if you want to create an object, obviously to create a copy, there has to be a blueprint first. isn't it? So first you have to create a design, then only we can do production. You understanding or no? So objects are the productions of the design, and the design is class. So to create object, first you have to create a class and then you create copies of it. So all that we'll see one by one. Then how do you add members in the class? Then what are different types of members? Okay. Then how Python is something totally different from the other OOP. Like runtime, you can add data members. Okay. So all that we are going to discuss one by one. Okay. So first we'll see how to define a class in Python. Okay, because unless and until you create a class, you cannot create a copies of it. Okay, so you have to first define a class, means your blueprint is ready, your template is ready, your design is ready. Then you'll create copies of it. Okay, when you're creating copies, means you're creating instances of it. Okay, and instances means only objects, and then that objects are going to take space. Okay, so how that is going to happen in Python one by one. So to define a class, very easy, just you have to use keyword class. Okay, keyword class, and then followed by the name of the class, which should be a valid Python identifier. Statement header, any statement header, complete with a colon. You can see a function definition, its header line, complete with colon. If, while, for, they complete with colon. So here also colon, and then you'll have your class body. Okay, sometimes it's called as class suite. Okay, so it's called as a class body. And they say that when this header line come, that is class name colon, after that whatever is indented, because here indentation between the old version, like Python 2, how they used to do. We cannot call it as old version because both exist. Only now from January 1, 2020, they have stopped doing changes in Python 2. In the near future, only Python 3 will exist. Okay, so class test if I do, I write colon. This is okay. This is Python 3 rule. Python 2 rule was you are supposed to also write in bracket here the parent class name. It's parent class name. Okay, and same like Java, in Python also, no class is orphan. Okay, orphan means you're getting, that is without parents. So in Python, never any class will be without parent. Every class is going to have a parent class. So either you have provided it by doing inheritance, or default there is a object class. Okay, so remember in Python, every classes are ultimately derived from object class. Means who is the ultimate root of all classes? Object. Getting? This terminology is not in C++, okay, but it's there in PHP. If you have learned PHP, so there instead of object there is std class. In Java it is same. There is a class called object. So in previous version of Python you were supposed to write like this. Now in this version, if you don't write, then also it is implied. Means it is implicitly derived from which class? Object class. So remember, I have created class test colon. Do we see any parent to it? No, but it is going to have a parent. And who is the parent class of it? Object class. Okay, so always remember, every Python class is ultimately, that is directly or indirectly, originated from object class. Okay, so the syntax I hope you understood. Okay, then any code that is indented means you got, it's typed in one same column, the similar column. So any code that is indented below the class definition is considered as class body. Okay, that is class definition, class header line. Header line means you are getting keyword class, name of the class, and colon. Okay. So I hope you understood. I'm just giving this syntax. See, class, class body, okay, and name of the class. We are understanding the syntax of the class. Keyword class, then the class name. It has to be a valid Python identifier. Okay, it should be a legal identifier. And then the class body. Now, commonly, you know, class body will contain data, okay, which is the characteristic of that object, and it will contain methods, that is functions, in which that data will get what? Accessed or manipulated. Isn't it? Then again, that data can be a class data or an instance data, class functions, instance functions. I'm coming to it, but I hope little bit idea in C++ and Java, you know. There are static data and instance data. Static functions, instance functions. Is it? Similar mechanism here. Okay. So what I said, every class body will contain data field, which will show the characteristic of your object, and it will contain methods. And method means only the behavior. Methods are going to contain logic, algorithm, in which that data is going to get manipulated or accessed. Okay, and all these members, they are also called members because they are part of the class. When they are part of that class, they are called members also. So which member? Data member and member function. They both, when you want to access in the outside world, we use dot operator. Okay, same like Java. Everything is accessed through dot. But C++, there is a confusion. If you're accessing via name, you use dot. If you're accessing via pointer, you have to use arrow. Isn't it? So this is the rule. In PHP, everything is through arrow only. So these are the differences of all these languages because the designer has made grammar of that language accordingly. Okay. So I hope you understood the definition. Let's take one simple example. Okay. See, I've created one class named cat. And after that, I haven't written any body. Okay. So at this moment, I want to keep my class empty. So I've used word pass. I hope you remember word pass. Is it? We have seen in our chapter 1 only when we saw transfer statement, break, continue, and then we took pass. And then I gave uses of pass at many places. Like if you want to write an abstract function means function without definition. Then we use word pass. Or if else you are writing, if and else, and I don't want to write any logic in else part, then I use pass. The same way, if I want to create an empty class, that is a class without a definition, then use pass. Okay, but then you'll say, what is the use of empty class? In Python, you can add members, okay, that is data members, later also in your class. That is the speciality. You're understanding? Clear? What is the speciality of Python class? That first you're creating an empty class. Okay, you can create an empty class, and then later runtime you can add members in it. And that is the reason Java is called as dynamically typed language. It's not static type. You understanding? Like in C++, C or Java, you have to first type your entire code. And can your code change code? Can your code modify the code? No. Clear? Here it is possible. You understanding? Means you first create an empty class and then later runtime you can add members in it. See how the things are little vague or something surprising, like which you haven't studied in the other language, but here it is possible. Okay, I'll show you the illustration, then you'll recognize it. So it is signifying what? This pass is signifying that it is a empty class body. Okay, and why we have kept empty? Because to later add members in it. Okay, so Python allows you to first create an empty class, and then after that you can add members in it. I'm going to show everything practically also. Okay, so don't worry. So hope it is clear to you. Okay, so creating a class concept is clear. See, for you people, I'll create a class and I'll just put pass. Class is created. Okay, at this moment it is a empty class. Okay, right? Then next will come to, now you'll say like how to add members in it. I'm coming to it. Everything I have organized and kept. Don't worry. Okay, everything in a step-by-step way we are learning. Next we'll see creating objects of that class, meaning the template is done. Now we have to do production of that template. Blueprint is ready. Now we have to just create copies of that blueprint. Okay, so that process is called as object creation, or you call it as process of instantiation. And the instances are objects. Whatever objects you get, they are called as instances. And process of creating object is called as instantiation or creating object. Okay, so creating object means creating instance, that is copy of class. And always remember, when we create an instance, that is copy, memory is allocated. Okay, when we create a class, it is just a template. Okay, I hope you understood. Now what is the syntax of creating objects in Python? Okay, so the rule is, and see here what I've stated, the objects take space in memory. Okay, now the syntax is object. This is your object, but internally it is a reference variable. Means it's going to contain address of your object. Get it? And a copy of this class is created. Here there is no significance to new. When a new operator is not used. Like, I hope you know it in PHP and Java. Those who have learned, again. Okay. And in C++, it's totally different concept. But C++ gives object creation on stack also, object creation on heap also. Means you can create it by value model also, ref model also. So I'm not going in detail about it now. It will be a confusion. Here just syntax you remember. So you have to give a class name, round bracket, and when an object, that is a copy of that class is created, you get a reference, and that reference is stored here. Okay, and always remember, when an object is created of this class, implicitly means you are getting, no? Okay, internally, implicitly means you are not calling it, okay, by using any dot operator. Implicitly, one magic method is called, and that magic method is constructor. Okay, and always remember, in your class, if there is no constructor, in gift there is one constructor added. Okay, if you haven't added it, you understanding or no? Clear? It is like a naming ceremony activity. Okay, a baby is born, and then when a baby is born, immediately when it is born, there is one ceremony taking place called as naming ceremony. So that naming ceremony happens in constructor. You understanding? So if suppose explicitly you haven't done the naming ceremony, so default doctor does. Okay, so I'm trying to just relate it. So here remember, object gets created. Okay, then the constructor is called implicitly, you don't call it, and the reference is collected. Okay, when the object created, then we say the memory is allocated. When we say object created, means the copy of the class is created. Okay, and always after object created, what is called one magic method, and it is called constructor. We are going to discuss that also in more detail. Okay, so by default, when you don't have any constructor, implicitly added, but you have added it, so your constructor will be called. Okay, remember that carefully. Now you'll say what you're calling that constructor as. So I'm assuming you have some basic idea about C++ and Java. But if not, so don't worry. When we'll come to the topic constructor, we will again define what is a constructor, what is the job of a constructor, how do we indicate it's a constructor, everything we are coming. Okay, to see. Instance, that is copy of given class name, is created in memory and its reference is stored in object. Getting? So something like this is going to happen. Whatever is your class, whatever class name, a copy of that class is created in memory. It's what is returned reference, and that reference is stored in one variable, and now you have given name to that variable as obj. So obj is containing address of this object. Okay, I hope it is clear to you, isn't it? Okay, so till here it is clear. The syntax is clear to you. Okay, Tejas is saying yes. Others are also hearing. Sometimes the attendance goes down, then sometimes the attendance is good. Okay, okay. Till here you have got lot to learn. A lot of minute things are there related to OOP in Python. Okay. Now, as we have created class cat, now suppose I'm creating object of it. Suppose I have written money equal to cat round bracket. TP equal to cat round bracket. Are two copies, two instances, two objects of class cat created. Okay, so they both are money and kitty, belonging to one common group called cat. Means they both are going to share the characteristics of class cat. Okay, see, if you try to print type of money, and if you try to print type of kitty, does it print class cat? And this class cat is belonging to this current module only. The default module is main. It can be in some other module also. So if it is in other module, you can import it and create object here. We are going to learn that thing also in the last chapter in file handling. I'll show you how to create your own modules, how to create your own packages, how to use our modules in some other program. Everything will be taught to you. Okay. So I hope it is clear. So when I'm trying to check the type of this both, is it displaying as class something, class something? Okay. You can even print their addresses. See, I print ID of money. Okay. See, print ID of kitty. Understanding? Okay. If I would have written this directly in main. See, I'm writing print main. Main money. Sorry. Okay. See, it is still printing the same thing. The address. Now you'll say, how do you verify this address and this? See, I'll try to cross verify and show you. Here I'm getting the address, and that address I'm passing to hex. I hope you remember hex function when we took function, third chapter, functions. Then I took some built-in functions in which oct, hex, bin we have seen. Okay, see, can you tally this? Okay, this is the hexadecimal of this address. This is the decimal address, and the same decimal address I'm passing to hex, it returns the hexadecimal. And when I pass the object print, this gets printed. Okay, here also one magic method is getting called. You understanding what I'm saying? See, it happens like this. Money dot underscore underscore str underscore underscore. This method is actually called, and this method is returning this thing. See, is it? You understanding or no? Meaning you make it clear when you pass any object to print. Whenever you pass any object to print, first that object calls its magic method. That object first implicitly calls this magic method. This magic method returns a string, and that string is passed to print. You understanding? Now this only those who are from Java, they are clear. Like in Java, when you pass an object to SOP, implicitly a two-string magic method is called. Here, str. Now you'll say how this is called. In my class, there is no such function. I have created an empty class, isn't it? See, your class is empty. This class doesn't have this method. And then also how it has called it. So actually it has called it from its parent class. You understanding? And who is the parent of money class? Money object class is cat. And who is the parent of cat class? Object class. And in object class, this method is already there. Getting? Okay. So this method is already present. Yes, we are going to see a separate topic I'm going to take, that is overriding underscore str underscore repr, all that I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I hope till here it is clear to you. But till here, what all things you understood? That is how to create a class and then how to create object of that class. Okay, hope it is clear. Sure. See, money equal to cat round bracket, kitty equal to cat round bracket. Are two copies created? Yes. Money and kitty are two copies, two objects, two instances of one same class cat. Okay. And if I try to write print money, is it displaying this? It is saying that this money is an object of class cat, and that object is at this address. Okay, but just now I clarified actually who displayed it, who has returned this string, this entire string someone has returned, and that string is printed here. So here one magic method. Which magic method? Underscore str underscore. It's also called a dunder method. Dunder is for double underscore. Okay, that they are words used by Python literature. Okay, and if I try to tally it by printing their address, who returns the address of any object? ID. That address is returned in decimal. That I have passed to hex. I got it. Does the address come same? That itself proves it is the address of that object. Okay, I hope it is clear. That is memory address of object